Hey everybody, it's Doombringer Griffin back with another Team Absolution deck profile. You've seen this trick before, huh? 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 It's Dark Irregulars. Stick around. Hey Team Absolution fans, it's your boy Doombringer Griffin, here with another Team Absolution deck profile. I am joined today by the Dark Irregulars, the clan I never thought I'd own, and yet here I am, playing them myself. What a strange turn of events life turns out to be, no? But, as you can see, I'm running 3 starters. Ooh, Ryan, why are you running 3 starters? What's going on here? Well, let me tell you. Actually, all the Dark Irregular starters that you run are really good. But let me tell you why I'm running this one. So this is Enigmatic Assassin. You can pronounce it however you like. Auto, Soul, Darkness. At the beginning, which if you don't know what Darkness does, this ability is active if cards have been put into your soul during this turn. At the beginning of your attack step, if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you may call this card to rearguard. If you do, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. Then, if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So what this does is if it's in your soul at the beginning of your attack step and you have put cards into your soul this turn, you can have this pop out and become a 20k anything. It's just 20k, assuming you have 15 cards or more in the soul, not including this once it pops out. So that's pretty important, I would say. I mean, that's really neat that you get a 20k, whatever, attack or booster, whatever you need, just off the bat. Slide this out behind your Vanguard and suddenly you've got a 56k attacker, which is the main combo I'll show you that this deck wants to do later on in the game. But it's also really solid if you put it behind one of your other more devastating grade 2s. So let me tell you all about that in just a second. So that's what Enigmatic Assassin does. I'll slide her on over here. And we'll start with the grade 0s, the triggers. We've got 4 One-Eyed Succubus. You've seen this card before, basically. It's a nice foil crit. You slide it into the soul when something with Scharhrot in the name attacks. And you get plus 5k and you draw a card. Really super standard stuff. Nothing to see here, folks. We've got the throwback to the actual BT07. A lot of cards in here from GBT07. That's why I make the joke. It's Dark Knight of Nightmareland. This card is so expensive for no reason. And we've got it sitting here with it's a Margle clone, except it's a crit. So it's not as good, unfortunately. But it's the only crit other than One-Eyed Succubus and Dark Irregulars that does anything, so you might as well run it. Then you kind of have a choice here. I didn't pick Hysteric Shirley for this deck. I picked Monochrome of Nightmareland. So what this card does is, assuming you're GB1 and you have this card on the field, you can put this card on top of your deck, shuffle, then soul charge 1, and then if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, you get to countercharge 1, essentially, as countercharge wasn't really a keyword in GBT03 where this card is from, if I'm not mistaken, GBT03, yes. And then if your soul has 10 or more cards in it, you draw a card. So main phase soul charge is really important in this deck to getting up to 15 soul minus Enigmatic Assassin, or yeah, 15 soul plus however many Enigmatic Assassins happen to be in your soul at the time. So getting up to that raw soul total so you can use most of your skills is really important, and this can be done in the main phase. Hysteric Shirley can do the same thing. If you don't know, Hysteric Shirley is a draw trigger that slides into the soul and then also soul charges 1. So if you need the 2 soul charge, that's really good, but I do like the fact that this card replaces itself. It's also a stand trigger, so your more devastating rear guards can swing again. And counter charge is 1, so a lot of utility on this card. It is GB1 though, Hysteric Shirley is not, and you'll see that this deck definitely wants to get it to that soul total right around the time it makes its second stride. Hopefully first if you're super lucky, but oftentimes you're not going to see that many resources. And for my heal trigger, I'm playing Alice of Nightmareland. Yeah, it's a Vanguard reference if you know it. Yeah, we don't get along. Oh well. So maybe she'll just never show up for me, but I'm totally okay with that, because this deck doesn't really need to heal, I guess. It's okay, Alice. You don't have to help me out. I totally get it. Goodbye. Alright, that's it for the grade 0s, and we'll move right into the grade 1s. So, yet another card that has jumped up in price just because it's kind of old and it's pretty good, even though it's really only good a couple of times in the game if you're lucky. It's Dimension Creeper. So this card, if you've never looked at it before, I don't blame you, says, act in the soul. Put this card into the drop zone, and if you have a Dark Irregulars Vanguard, you do, you Soul Charge 2. So this is your ideal first ride. Super interesting is if you're able to ride this card, you can then use it to Soul Charge 2 and bump yourself up an extra soul total, which matters. If you happen to Soul Charge this off of anything else, you can do the same thing. If it's in your hand, it's just a 7k booster, which kind of sucks, but there's a lot of cards that allow you to make use of this, and I'll explain what those are later. And then we have our 4 Stride Fodder, because since we're running, oh gosh, 18 grade zeros? No, sorry, 19 grade zeros. The grade 1s kind of take a punish. That and the fact that Dark Irregulars doesn't have a lot of really proactive grade 1s to run. This card, if you play it, you can use it to search out Scharhrot if you don't like your other option, which in this deck is Glänzend. Granted, Glänzend is fine, but if you really want Scharhrot to keep the Soul Charge coming, awesome. Here you go. You can always search it out. And of course, it's Stride Fodder since we're only running 7 grade 3s, which I will explain later. You have a choice of PGs here. You can either run Flag Breaker, which is the unflip, but I feel like we have a decent amount of unflip that you don't use all of the counterblast in the whole wide world. So I'm running Greedy Succubus, or Succubus of Avarice as it was actually printed in English. And this is your mechanic PG. It blocks only the Vanguard with its first effect, and its second effect is if it's in the soul and it's GB1 and you have Darkness active, so you put cards in the soul this turn, you can retire one of your grade 1 or less rear guards. Dimension Creeper, this guy right here, not doing a whole lot, and you can bounce this back to your hand from the soul to have another PG on hand. So I like the accessibility of this, especially because in Dark Irregulars, you're really trying to scale up to your really awesome effects and not die before that happens. So getting a chance, especially since you're soul charging a lot and you might be removing PGs from the board or from your deck that are available to you, I like the option of being able to grab it to my hand, assuming I have something to drop. Because all my grade 0s are 10Ks, I like to have those in hand, and really my grade 1 options are Dimension Creeper, Succubus of Love, and Serpent Charmer. So Serpent Charmer is an emergency release valve in a deck that desperately needed one. So what he says is continuous darkness. While you have 10 or more cards in Soul, he gets power plus 2000, so he's a 9k booster, which matters for a grade 2 in the deck. You'll notice that all these cards work together really well for apparently no reason. And his other effect is retire this unit. Let me get this right because it is pretty complicated and pretty strange. So if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more and you have Darkness active, this unit gets auto rearguard circle, retire this unit. At the end of your turn, you may pay the cost. And if you do, choose 13 cards from your soul, return the rest of your soul to the deck, shuffle your deck, and draw a card. So he allows you to put cards from your soul back into your deck to be used again. So assuming your deck's getting a little thin or you want to make a huge trigger push, you can shove all the cards, or pick 13 of the cards that are more useless and can stay in the soul, and you can put everything else back in the deck, and then you get to draw a card. So that's pretty neat. You use this typically in the late game, especially if you're about to die and you have a lot of cards in soul. You can just put like enough triggers to survive until the end of the game, or really enough cards, and then you can also just choose if they're triggers or PGs or whatever you want. So that's pretty neat. That you get to have this little emergency release valve, but it's not really worth running more than 2 of, not that you have the space anyway, just because you're trying to pull off the Enigmatic Assassin combo, really. And so that's it for the grade 1s. On to the grade 2s. Now, surprisingly, you actually have a good few, or the cards that you have to choose from are few for this slot, but the cards that you are probably going to choose are really good. And so we'll start off with Doppel Vampir. He's a really cool card, and again, he has a lot of effects, so I'll just read it to you. Auto rearguard circle GB1 Darkness. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, this unit gets power plus 5000 until end of that battle. And if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, until end of that battle, your opponent cannot call grade 0 cards from hand to guard. So he is your Silent Tom. That's pretty neat, considering a lot of where this deck is strong is in the fact that it gets to guard restrict a lot. It does actually have like 3 or 4 different guard restrict cards, so that's super neat. And he can go by himself. He can be 14 by himself, so in the case that you don't have a booster, which is a lot of the time, considering you're only running 14 grade 1s, that's not very many, especially when none of them are supposed to boost. Except for Serpent Charmer, you can kind of just stay there, assuming you're not playing against anything with retire, which is a lot of things in this game. So you get to be sad most of the time. But a lot of your grade 2s can survive by themselves on the board, and Doppel Vampir is definitely no exception. He's the main one. So he gains 5,000 power on swing if you have 6 or more, and if you have 15 or more, he's a Silent Tom. So definitely pretty neat, especially if you think you're going to hit a stand trigger, you're feeling lucky. He can definitely swing twice. So that's Doppel Vampir. He will be the beneficiary of many Enigmatic Assassin in your time playing this deck. So then I play 3 Demented Executioners. I call them Demics because I play a lot of Kingdom Hearts. He is your Mechanic Grade 2, and I will read him to you as well. At rearguard circle once per turn, Darkness. Counterblast 1, if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, this unit gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn, and if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, this unit gets power plus 3,000 until end of turn. So, assuming Darkness is active, you can counterblast 1, he becomes a 14k, so if you're really into swing with him, add a Vanguard, that's pretty neat, or you just want to bull over a 9k rearguard. And then, when he's placed on rearguard circle, you can look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, search for up to 1 card with the Darkness ability from among them, put it into your soul, and shuffle your deck. So you want to put a PG in there and then move it into your hand, you can do that. If you just need the soul, which usually is what you'll play this card for, just the 1 soul charge of your choice, you can also do that. So that's what's cool about him, and he can, again, swing by himself with his first effect. So that's why we use Demics, and he is pretty new as well from GBT08. Thanks for making an appearance, friend. And then we have our tech cards. So we have 3 slots to play with in the grade 2s, and I'm running 2 of this lovely hard to get promo, Flying Librarian. So she is the coveted main phase soul charge. Unfortunately, she is GB locked, so you have to stride at least once to use her. But on call, counterblast 1 when she's placed on rearguard circle, which is kind of what I just said. You may soul charge 2. Then if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, you draw a card. And then if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you choose a card from your damage zone and flip it face up. So she's actually free, assuming you have the soul to do so, which by GB1 you need to, essentially. Or at least by the time you're striding your second time, you definitely need a lot of soul to make this deck work, or you're just falling behind. So she's free and she draws a card, so she replaces herself and soul charges 2. And that's why we play her. Thankfully, we have cards like Serpent Charmer to make sure she can still hit lines, but she is 8k. Despite all that. So, take that with what you will, but the main phase soul charge is definitely worth it in my book. And then we have our 1 of tech slot. I'm using it for Squallmaker Vampir. He's the Amber clone. So when he's boosted, counterblast 1, he gains 5,000 power, and you soul charge 2. So, I was originally running more of him. I put in Flying Librarian because he's kind of hard to get off, and you need boosters, which this deck doesn't run many of, and you kind of see, this is like the most anti-synergy card in here, I would say. But when he works out, at least he's another attacker. And if you don't like him, you can always replace him with another Demics. Or I wouldn't recommend going up to 3 Flying Librarian. Or if you had any other suggestions, you can always put in your own tech cards. And that's it for grade 2s. So moving on to the grade 3s of this deck, if you haven't figured this out, you got your lovely 4 of Scharhrot Vampir. So what Scharhrot Vampir says is useless GB2 skill you'll never use, just kidding. It's continuous, Vanguard GB2. During your turn, if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, student gets power plus 10,000, and if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, it gets plus 1 crit. So he gets to swing with 10k and a crit if you have enough soul, which is fine, it's alright, but keep in mind that your strides are simply just better than that, and you need to be striding. Which is why we run 4 stride fodder and enough searching power to hopefully find him or Glänzend to stride with. And his on-stride skill, since he is the stride bearer, is Vanguard Circle counterblast 1. During your turn when your unit strides, you may pay the cost if you do Soul Charge 2, and choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of that turn, it gets auto Vanguard Circle when this unit attacks a Vanguard. If the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, your opponent chooses one of his or her Vanguards and retires it. So just a little bit of like Thavas-esque utility on the back end there to keep your opponent's rearguards count low, and yeah, they choose, so it could really just be whatever. Retiring is not what this deck does, it's just kind of throwing on for a little bit of extra power, but the Soul Charge is really what you want. Kind of busting 1 for Soul Charge 2, on stride. Kind of a lame effect, but at least you get that little bit of helpfulness on the back end. And that's really what this guy is doing. He has a decent GB2 skill, but you're probably not going to use it. This guy's pretty interesting, came out in GBT08, really cheap triple R, so sad if you're a Dark Irregulars player. It's Glänzend Vampir, Glänzend Vampir. Depending on if you're using the phonetic, I don't know why there's an A here. It really should have been an E, but who am I to comment on how Bushiroad translates its things. So he has a lot of text, so much so that they use a smaller font. Auto, Vanguard Circle, GB1, Darkness. Choose a card with a Darkness ability from your hand or rear guards, important, and put it into your soul. At the end of your turn, if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card. And if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, countercharge 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. The way they word this first skill makes it sound like after you stride, you can still do this, countercharge 1, and assuming you have the soul, you can choose your opponent's rear guards, kill it, and you can then you just pay the cost with a darkness ability from your hand or your rear guards. So if you want to slip in an Enigmatic Assassin off your board, you can do that, it sounds like, and draw a card, countercharge 1. So he's not bad to have on the Vanguard, assuming that does work. The ruling is still out on that. I'm not sure people have really been asking that question, but I have heard that some people do use Glänzend as their main Vanguard, and that kind of speaks to me that they are using the effect that way. And that is something really cool that sounds like you can do. If anyone thinks I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments. And we are a pretty open team here. And his other skill, which granted is one of the reasons that I use him more than the first one, Auto, Counterblast 1. When this unit is placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, not many grade 3s you see doing that now, and well, we see an increasing amount today, just so we use them. You may pay the cost, and if you do, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, search for up to 5 cards with the Darkness ability from among them, put them into your soul, and put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Then this unit gets power plus 1,000 for each card put into your soul with its effect until end of turn. So he can be a big soul charge boon depending on what cards you get. There are a good few cards with darkness here. We've got Serpent Charmer, which you really don't want to be in your soul. You definitely want to look for the Enigmatic Assassins. You have the Perfect Guards. You have Doppel. You have this guy himself if you find a copy. You have Demix. And that's you're kind of running out there. That's a little bit it. You might have a trigger. You don't even have Monochrome. So yeah, your options are kind of limited for how many. You're not gonna like pick up 5 and shove in 5 unless you get, wow, you just had no triggers in that top stack. Wow, good for you. Let's shove all that in there. But he can be the difference between how early you can pull off your huge stride effects. So not a bad card at all. But he is just as cheap as I predicted in my GBT08 forecast. So check that out. And now on to strides. Well, we'll start with the G guards. We'll start with my personal favorite, False Dark Wings, Agrat Mahlat. Well, my personal favorite for the name at least. She's actually super good when it comes to, let's say you went first in Dark Irregulars, you need to hit that soul charge for a first stride, wham bam, bam blam, Agrat Mahlat, whatever. So when she's called the Guard Circle, with G guard rules, you soul charge 2 automatically, and then if you have 6 or more cards in soul, she gets the power plus 1,000. So this is the Fighters Collection one. Really, really good for getting to your totals that you need to make this deck work. Definitely very useful. Even if you can even just kind of scum it, and if you just need the soul, just drop the heal trigger by Alice and soul charge 2. Even if you don't really need the guard or the extra 5k, even if you don't care, or even if it won't stop it, you can still just drop it for the soul charge 2 on your opponent's turn. Get some use out of your heal triggers there. They aren't in your deck or in your soul with this deck. Oh, it's so sad. And then my other 2 G guards, I'm playing 2 very nice SP. Ooh, Nighttime Gentleman Saint-Germain. So he's the 10k G guard, and he says if you have 10 or more cards in soul, when you call him to G guard, he gains plus 10,000 power, or shield, I'm sorry, not power. And then if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, choose any number of your units, and until end of turn, they get resist no matter where they are. So super interesting. Are you going to use that? You might, I guess. It could be interesting. Don't play it against Diablo, even though I'm pretty sure that's next skill, but it doesn't matter. It has that nice little tech on it, but don't use this, or don't play this if you have less than 10 cards in soul, because you're not going to be able to get any of his effects then. But overall, pretty solid, and definitely a better choice for this deck than something like Scharhrot. So for strides, we have 1 Love Tempest Kisskill Lira. She's the on-hit soul charge 2 if you hit, and if the number of cards in your soul is then 6 or more, you draw a card. So a little bit of utility on the back end, probably not actually going to use this in game. I could replace it with something else, but honestly the option to not flip anything is pretty nice, and I think I'll just keep her on the team regardless. So then you have your normal first stride. If you're not at your soul total yet, I'm running 2 Mask of Demonic Frenzy Ericrius. So he is main phase soul charge. So when he drops onto the board, when he attacks a Vanguard, you may soul charge too. So the fact that you don't have to hit anything, or it just happens. If the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more until end of that battle, this unit gets auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attack hits, your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards and retires it, so that barely matters. And if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, this unit gets plus 1,000 power for each card in your soul until end of that battle. So not exactly much of a late game finisher. You really choose it for the first stride, sometimes second stride if you're really behind. So sad. Just to get that magic 15 in the soul plus however many Enigmatic Assassins you have. So that's really what he's all about. Just, it's the fact that you're not limited by anything but the fact that you need Darkness active, but Scharhrot turns that on for you, assuming you have him on the Vanguard. We have 1 Rebellious Retainer of Fresh Blood Frederick. Oh, there he is, straight from the Fighters Collection. Hello, yes, it was him. And choose a card from your hand and put it into your soul. This unit gets power plus 1,000 for each card in your soul until end of turn. And if the total power increase with this effect during this turn is 10,000 or greater, all the rear guards in your front row get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. This ability cannot be used for the rest of the turn. So he's just kind of big if you just needed something to whack your opponent with real quick for not a whole lot of cost. Pretty neat. Buffs your front line, which nothing else in this deck does. And could be pretty cool if you're for some reason didn't want to go into the 2 big strides in this deck, which is kind of why we're playing that stuff in the first place. So we'll start off with the pretty one. 1 Steeped in Sin, Scharhrot, so the Stride Evo. I've got the SGR, it's really pretty, yes, I got a 1-off. So what's nice about this card is it doesn't flip, but I will redo the entire effect. Auto, Vanguard Circle, GB2 Darkness. Counterblast 1, when this unit attacks, you may pay the cost. If you do, put all of your rear guards into your soul, and this unit gets power plus 10,000 to into that battle. If the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, retire all of your opponent's rear guards, and if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more at this point, until end of that battle, your opponent cannot call cards with the Sentinel ability from hand to guard. So this is one of the many guard-restricting ways. In fact, both of your strides say no to grade 1s, and Doppel Vampir says no to grade 0s. Or this one says Sentinel specifically, the other one says grade 1s, but we're not quite there yet. And so what he's good for is he's a board wipe, so that's super interesting. But it doesn't really mesh well with Scharhrot, does it? As Scharhrot already wants to kill one, so what's really the point, I guess? Kill him twice, I suppose. But he wipes the board both ways, so stand triggers aren't so great meshing with him, but if you attack with your other rear guards, first you can get the value out of that and put all the crits that you get on this guy, considering your opponent's just going to be... You've really got no other choice, so you might as well put all the triggers on Vanguard anyway and see how much damage you can do. But without Sentinels, it's kind of hard to get around that, and that's probably why they put specifically Sentinels on here, just so you couldn't use this card, do a Twin Tempest on the board, and then just have nowhere to put your triggers. So the card makes a lot of sense. It disadvantages your opponent if they were already committing to the board too heavily. But also, it provides a reset for the main combo in this deck, which I'm about to tell you about. So this is Abominable 1 Gilles. I have 2 SPs here, but they're not the good SPs. They're the set 3 SPs before they did SP packs, so sad. He actually did come in another SP, and now this SP is not as good. But I'll read you what he does, as he's the more famous stride in this deck that kind of makes it what it is. Act once per turn. Choose a face-down card, so Persona Flip. If the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, this unit gets power plus 10,000 till end of turn. So both of these strides get power plus 10,000, that's pretty neat. Then if the number of cards in your soul is 15 or more, till end of turn, this unit gets auto Vanguard. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, until end of that battle, your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from hand to guard circle. And if the number of cards in your G zone, face up in your G zone, is 2 or more, this unit gets power plus 1, gets plus 1 crit until end of turn. Excuse me. So how this works is, or pretty much what the combo in this deck is, you can either go into Ericrius first stride to get your soul total up, or you can go into this, assuming you have the soul total already, or you just don't care, and you can wipe the board away, and then you go into Guild Array. When you attack, you get your Enigmatic Assassins out of the soul. So you pop out, you probably get like 2. So say this is what your board looks like. You got this and your huge stack of soul, something like that. And then, so when you attack, you shoot out your Enigmatic Assassins, and you get to boost here. So you got 56k, no grade 1s or higher, with a crit. How do you guard that? Pretty difficult, gotta tell you. It's not so easy. And then, assuming you're Enigmatic Assassins, and say you had a Doppel Vampir here, and then you have a 34 line here. That's pretty scary. No grade 0s this time. Kind of starting to get dicey for your opponent. And so the next turn, what you do, assuming say I have a Scharhrot here. There you go. So next turn, you stride into Big Bad Scharhrot here. You clean the board again. You put all this back into your soul. So next turn, you can go back into Guild Array and pull all your Enigmatic Assassins back out. And so you kind of keep doing this until your opponent dies, or in some cases you do. So that's really what the deck wants to do, is put this ridiculously huge power combo with crits and guard resist together as many times as possible, and the fact that you can do it multiple times seems really cool. Your grade 2s all synergize with your 7k beater grade 1s. So this can swing, lost a Doppel Vampir, but Doppel Vampir can swing for 21 with no problem. For Counterblast 1, so can Demix. Squallmaker also for Counterblast 1 swings for 21, and then you have Serpent Charmer to help out Flying Librarian. So the deck actually syncs up well together and is able to hit decent lines. The effects of the grade 2s are pretty neat, and the grade 3s aren't bad themselves. The Stride plus Enigmatic Assassin combo is really what you want to go for, and that's the entire point of the deck. I just showed you that combo. So that's been the Vampir Dark Irregulars deck. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I'll be checking the comments periodically. So thanks for tuning into the Team Absolution deck profile. Peace.